We actually met in college at Fort Hays State. Yeah, I remember I saw her dancing at the club, our local club, and I followed her home in my car.
Just at a dance club, though,
Yeah.
to be clear. I had seen him around a little bit before that, but we'd never been introduced.
As I was following her home in my car, I had the window down, rolling pretty slow, and I just kept talking to her, and it kind of evolved from there.
Well, I would say it was your typical college relationship. So it wasn't dates and going to movies. We did hang out a lot. We hung out at my apartment and we played a lot of cards, but we didn't go on a whole lot of dates, and we just spent time together.
And actually, we had an interesting journey. It kind of took a while, on again, off again for several years. And then we had a child together. It just kind of evolved from that. So I realized that I needed to break the cycle of single parents in my family. I really needed to be the father and a husband on a daily basis, which I didn't grow up with. That was a moment for me. So in college, I had graduated and moved away and started work, and she was still in college. So we had distance between us. So we never really had that common time to just focus on ourselves and be together because there was space and distance between us.
Honestly, it was difficult. It was on again, off again. We had fun when we were together, but we have pretty different personalities and we clashed a lot. So it was really hard. And then we had our daughter. During that time was very difficult because we were off again. But then when we had her, that kind of brought us back together. We were spending more time together. We were both focused on her. And then we had our son. And that's about the time I think we realized, okay, this is not the right way to go about things. We need to do something about this.
Yeah, I was pretty immature and I didn't have a great example of what a man was supposed to be like in the home and how you're supposed to show love to your spouse. It was easy for me to show love to my children, but it wasn't always easy for me to show love to a spouse. It took me a little bit of time to be able to navigate that. We moved in together, and I think that started to give us a sense of what a relationship was really about, because we never really had gotten that time together.
I think we both just felt like the right thing to do is get married. And I feel very strongly about not living together before you get married or having kids, but that's just how it went. And I feel strongly about that because I think we had a lot of struggles because that's the path that we chose, not necessarily made the decision, but that's where we ended up. So I think that we had a lot of struggles because of that. And it took years of being married before we really started to see the value and find love in each other and really appreciate each other.
Her willingness to sacrifice as a parent really helped me want to try to be better, and her unwavering, unconditional love and trying to support and fight for her family was really what helped us be able to sustain and get to where we are today.
There was a proposal, but not these big proposals that happen today. It was fairly minimal. And we had the whole big wedding, which was actually a lot of fun. However, the day before the rehearsal we were at odds. That night, I don't know if I got any sleep because I was thinking, this is probably not a good idea. But at that time at the age I was at, I thought, well, it's just gonna work. Come to find out, it doesn't just work. You have to be very intentional and put a lot of work into it.
Yeah, definitely leading up to the wedding day was stressful. A lot of influence from outside people that kind of negatively affected leading up to it. But once the wedding day happened, it was a great time to be able to see our families blended together, have a good time, and be able to enjoy the experience.
We did have a lot of fun on our wedding day, and for all of our families to come together and have such a good time was pretty awesome.
That was memorable. I think not having the time together in the traditional relationship made it a lot more difficult, as she mentioned before. My focus was always trying to make sure that we provided. I didn't grow up with a whole lot, and so I worked a lot, and I wanted to make sure to try to give my kids better than what I had, and that kind of neglected our relationship, and we fought a lot over finances, as younger couples usually do. We kind of had a different vision of how that was working and what our priorities were with that. So that caused some stress.
I did kind of feel neglected in that I was home with these kids to handle the responsibilities at home. And him working a lot. I was working as well, but he was working multiple jobs, so I was home with the kids every evening and on the weekends, which I appreciated everything he was doing. Well, I don't know that I appreciated as much at the time.
And I just think that comes from, a lack of communication and growing up in two different backgrounds. She was raised with parents both her parents in the house. I was raised single. They definitely impacted our relationship at the time.
And at that time, we did not have common goals. We both were focused on being good parents, and I think we've always done a good job of that, but we didn't have a common goal in our marriage. So we fought about all of the things. We had times of having fun and laughing, but it was stressful.
Some of the most for me was her throwing my 30th birthday party. That was one of our memories at our house that we got. That was really, really good time with. We got to share with a lot of family and friends. And
although it was hard, it's just sometimes we could just be silly and fun. We had times of being lighthearted and laughing.
For me, it's when we really started to worship together and make God and church a priority for us. I think that's really sustained it, honestly. That's how we're still here today. If it wasn't for that, we wouldn't be where we are today.
I think my heart started to change. I got involved in a women's Bible study about 13 years ago, and the very first book we studied was Honor's Reward, which really wasn't specific to marriage, but the whole time I felt like God was just slapping me in the face to wake me up that it was about honoring authority figures in your life. And up until that point, I never saw him as an authority figure in my life. And that book really made me realize there's one leader in this family and it's not me. And while it was a hard transition, I think that's what really started changing my heart, that here I'm battling for some of the control, and that's not my place. So I started at that point really realizing that he's the leader of our family, and whether I like it or not, he has the final say. And again, it wasn't quick, but it slowly helped me start shifting.
I think I just came to the realization that it does take work, and there's no perfect relationship. At some point, I just kind of got, if I need to do this, I need to change how I respond to situations. I'm a pretty direct person, so my words come direct, and I don't necessarily mean them as harmful, but they come across like that. You know, my tone, I have tried to be a lot more intentional about absorbing some information and being intentional of how I respond and how this may come across. And I think that's really helped our relationship a lot.
I think we're really just now getting to where we can have good, honest communication without hurt, without tears and anger. One thing that I know he has really changed his tone, and that's a word that I've used many times in our relationship, but I had to tone down my sass too. Or even if I wasn't saying it or snapping back, it would still be in my heart. So I've really had to work on not snapping back at him and not having a response to everything he says.
Trying to get rid of the resentment for me was one of the hardest things to try to deal with. I can remember coaching myself all day long at work or coming home, and I would be like, man, I'm gonna do this. I want to have a good day. I want to show this. And then one thing that she would say or do would trigger me, and I'd go right back to the negative space that I was. So I really had to be intentional to know more of her heart than what was said. And I think that's the most important part, is trying to feel somebody out for what you know, who they are as a person, and try to look past the resentment and the hurt to really give them the benefit of the doubt and grace. It's not necessarily how they feel about you. It's just how they're interpreted where they are at that moment. I think making a conscious decision to really start tithing and be more givers, starting each day off with prayer, praying with each other every day was really, really big, because it puts you in a better place for the day, regardless of what may have happened the day before or the night before. Knowing you start each day off like that has been really a blessing for our relationship.
And being vulnerable with each other, because we had so many years of hurt that there was a lot of resentment and walls up. So when we started praying together, we opened our hearts up to each other like I don't think we ever had before.
It was actually safe, because it's pretty hard for her to judge me if I'm saying these things with her to the Lord. There's not going to be, I don't feel like there's going to be a whole lot of backlash. So I can start to say some things or show more vulnerability in that prayer time, because I'm saying it to the Lord, right? And it may happen to be about her, it might happen to be about me. I felt like it was just such a safe space to be able to open up and become vulnerable.
Well, it showed me that he's rising up to be the spiritual leader of our family, where early on, I don't think that was the case. So I saw the transformation in him, and it made me love him more, and it made me trust him more. Actually, during our 5th year of marriage, we were separated for a whole year. And during that time, I was praying, God, give me a sign that I can get out of this. We're not right for each other. This is so hard. This is not, I want it out. During that time, actually, my sister pointed out to me, he's trying. Like, he's doing these things he's never done before. And it took that to point that out to me, to be able to see it and soften my heart towards him. And then, I don't know at what point he started going to church with us. We started worshiping together. That was huge for us.
Definitely her unconditional love, even when I didn't deserve it, her willingness to fight for her family is what gave me me the ability to try to do the same.
He's a natural leader, and he works hard and is really disciplined. So I knew he was going to make sure we were taken care of no matter what. I say love is a decision, not a feeling. So every day you just have to decide, I'm here, I'm gonna do this, I'm committed to this, no matter how I feel.
Make sure that you are really good friends, like you enjoy each other. There's been a lot of times in our relationship, I've always loved her, but I didn't necessarily like her. I think love, once you establish that relationship, is pretty unconditional, but choosing to like somebody and choosing to like who they are or they're becoming as a person, I think that's really important. So trying to make sure you can stay friends is gonna be the huge part.
One thing I feel very proud of that we've done well is raise our kids. I always, no matter how I felt about him as my husband, I knew he was a good dad. Actually, once before he started going to church, he would for sure tell the kids, no, you're going to church with your mom, you're going to church with your moms. But once he started really practicing his faith, super impactful for our kids, especially our son.
I realized that she needed to be my primary focus and not my kids. And it took me a really long time to understand that. Since I came from a background with a single mom for a majority of my life, that me being a good dad was the most important thing to me. And that really caused some friction in our relationship. And I know that's not the way that God intended it. And our relationship suffered because of that. I thought I was doing the right thing. God intended for her to be the most important part and the children to be up under that umbrella. And so once I started to realize that, I think it really changed my perspective. I would advise everybody that that's not the way it's supposed to be. You need to put God first, your spouse, and then your children underneath that.
I remember getting advice that there's one person in this relationship you can control, and it's you. So I had to work on me, and I had to realize, oh, there are things I'm doing that's causing him to react in a certain way. So I think just focusing on me and growing myself, and I knew God wanted our family together. I knew that was the best thing. So at times I didn't want that, but I knew that we have to figure this out. That's what God wants. But I also know that he wants us to have a good, solid relationship that's a good example for others.
Yeah, I agree. I think you have to do a lot of internal self-reflection and be honest with yourself and be able to ask hard questions to yourself. Right now, I'm really working still trying to be more selfless. I made a lot of selfish decisions and they always turn out negative. So I want to be more selfless in our relationship and selfless in general. And I think that when you do that, it allows you to be more vulnerable and God's willing to open up more doors for you.